When at table, he was totally absorbed in the business of the moment. His looks seemed riveted to his plate, nor would he, unless when in very high company, say one word, or even pay the least attention to what was said by others, till he had satisfied his appetite, which was so fierce, and indulged with such intenseness, that while in the act of eating, the veins of his forehead swelled, and generally a strong perspiration was visible. To those whose sensations were delicate, this could not but be disgusting, and it was doubtless not very suitable to the character of a philosopher, who should be distinguished by self-command. But it must be owned that Johnson, though he could be rigidly abstemious, was not a temperate man either in eating or drinking. He could refrain, but he could not use moderately. He told me that he had fasted 2 days without inconvenience, and that he had never been hungry. At supper, Johnson talked of good eating with uncommon satisfaction. Some people, said he, have a foolish way of not minding or pretending not to mind what they eat. For my part, I mind my belly very studiously and very carefully, for I look upon it that he who does not mind his belly will hardly mind anything else. He was for the moment not only serious but vehement. Yet I have heard him, upon other occasions, talk with great contempt of people who were anxious to gratify their palates, and the 206th number of his Rambler is a masterly essay against gulosity. His practice, indeed, I must acknowledge, may be considered as casting the balance of his different opinions upon the subject. For I never knew any man who relished good eating more than he did.
China will become the world's safest and largest investment economy in times to come, given the following factors: huge market potential, rich labor resources, comparative advantage in labor cost, sound corporate governance, and stable government and society. All these factors will further attract the inflow of foreign capital into China. In short, China's economy will grow even faster in the future. In the next 15 years, China's economy will still increase at a rate of 7% to 8%. In the year 2020, should price index remain the same as today, GDP will amount to US $4.8 trillion. GDP per capita will reach US $3,300. However, the level of GDP per capita is still very low in China at the moment. GDP per capita's growth is still at a slow rate. GDP per capita will have to be further increased in order to raise China's standard of living so as to bridge the present income gap between the rich and the poor. Satisfaction of consumers' needs can be the main driver in raising China's living standards. Domestic demand will increase as the economy grows. Therefore, extensive production of goods and services can further push and sustain the economy's growth. Moreover, there are abundant human resources in China, and labor cost in China is much lower than the other industrialized countries. China's education system is also being fast developed. Thus, more people will achieve higher level of education than in the past. With comparative advantage in cheap labor cost and increase of human capital brought about by education, future for China's economy can be only even brighter.
It is a remarkable reversal in attitudes from just a few months ago, when the broader economy seemed relatively healthy, but Wall Street was traumatized by billions of dollars in mortgage-related losses. Now, bankers and investors appear ready to look past the crisis to more profitable times, while consumers find themselves in a more precarious position as the job market weakens and banks make it harder to borrow money. It is, of course, not uncommon for Wall Street to run ahead of the broader economy. Investors, after all, make money by anticipating the future. The job market, by contrast, improves more slowly than other aspects of the economy. But
In early October, just 2 months after credit markets froze up, the stock market climbed to an all-time high. The optimists believe it is different this time. The catalyst for the change, they say, was the Fed-arranged deal that sold a troubled investment bank, Bear Stearns, to J.P. Morgan Chase in mid-March. The central bank further restored order in the markets by lending directly to investment banks, assuring that big securities firms could not be undone by a crisis of confidence.
There are few among us that did not wonder in awe about what it would be like to be an astronaut. Space exploration will forever pique humanity's interest and curiosity. The prestige of visiting outer space belongs to a proud few, but as technology develops, more and more people will have the opportunity. The Fédération Aéronautique Internationale states that a man or woman officially becomes an astronaut upon reaching an altitude of over 100 miles. As of March 30, 2006, 443 people have crossed this imaginary line. Efforts to learn more about space are widespread. Since the astronaut Yuri Gagarin made his pioneering exit out of our atmosphere, men and women from 35 countries have joined his notoriety. During the race to space in the early 1960s, the United States began Project Apollo, a campaign launched to compete with the efforts of Russian scientists and future cosmonauts. With resources going into the Apollo spacecraft, Saturn launch vehicle, and details like mission-specific astronaut suits, the U.S. was finally successful when the Apollo astronauts reached the Moon and safely returned in July of 1969. Since the infancy of human presence in space, 18 astronauts have died on missions, and 10 more from launches. Despite this, our interests remain strong and our minds stay determined. Find out more about astronauts, and space-related news in our archive of astronaut pictures, articles and interactive features below.
They who beheld with wonder how much he eat upon all occasions when his dinner was to his taste, could not easily conceive what he must have meant by hunger. And not only was he remarkable for the extraordinary quantity which he eat, but he was, or affected to be, a man of very nice discernment in the science of cookery. He used to descant critically on the dishes which had been at table where he had dined or supped, and to recollect very minutely what he had liked. I remember, when he was in Scotland, his praising Gordon's palates, a dish of palates at the Honourable Alexander Gordon's, with a warmth of expression which might have done honour to more important subjects. As for Maclaurin's imitation of a made dish, it was a wretched attempt.
It's been a challenging decade for the music industry, with a significant decrease in sales. For years, little action was taken against illegal downloads, with few effects for downloaders. However, two new approaches are seeing positive results. Firstly, the industry is working with internet service providers to slow an illegal downloader's connection. Secondly, it's working directly with digital music websites. In Sweden, 3 out of 5 illegal file sharers have cut back or stopped, with half of these people moving to legal websites supported by advertisements.